Hello, and welcome to Fall Semester 2025. My name is Dan Alasso, and I will be your instructor for this course. So, who am I? I am a PhD historian with a couple of academic monographs and several textbooks under my belt, which means that I spend a lot of my time researching and writing. I hope that that will make the content that we're going to cover this semester maybe a little bit fresher than what you may have seen in other history courses that you may have taken in high school or in college. You may even be surprised by some of the less well-known but important history that we'll cover this semester that you may not have seen before. That doesn't mean, however, that we're going to go off into some weird world of super deep dives into super random tangents to regular history. Well, of course, historians like me love to dig into the stories of strange people and strange events. Often the stranger the better. This is also a survey course. So we're going to cover most of the big main events of history, even if we look at them from slightly different perspectives than you may have expected. Why are we going to do this? What's the point of this class? I think that nowadays especially, it's a good idea to be very upfront about why we're here. For many of you, it may be because you have a little bit of curiosity about the past. But mainly, it's probably because you have a goal area to fill in your general education requirement. I think both of these reasons are completely legitimate. I agree that students should learn something about the past in order to better understand the present. And I also hope to kind of fan the flame of that curiosity that you might have a little bit by sharing some interesting stories in interesting ways. As far as my goals are concerned, I think there are some skills that you can learn in a class like this that will help you be more effective in whatever it is you choose to do in the future. Close reading and critical thinking, followed by expressing yourself in writing. These are skills that will help you in nearly all of the work and social and personal roles in which you're going to find yourself throughout your life. So we'll work on practicing these skills because they improve with practice. The other unique thing about history is that it helps to explain how we got to the situation that we find ourselves in today. You find yourself in school, many of you preparing for adult life, at a very strange time. Many of the voices trying to make sense or claiming that they have made sense of the present try to alarm you with the existential risks associated with everything from the next election to the next international trade deal or the next war. Sometimes these warnings do have an element of truth to them, but often they're exaggerated and echo similar warnings that were made decades or generations or even centuries ago. A little knowledge of the past can sometimes take the edge off of some of that alarmism. It's also true that, to a very great extent, history is the result of decisions and choices that people have made in the past. Now, this is not to say that everyone had equal access and ability to choose. In fact, the issue of who had what we call agency and who didn't is a central question for historians. But there were moments in the past when some people made choices, just as there are moments in the present and will be more moments in the future when all of us, including you, will be expected to make choices. Understanding the issues that people faced in the past, the perspectives and the worldviews that help them to understand those moments and the choices that they made will help us to better understand the present and to prepare for the future. So my goal for you is not so much that you become an expert on some long list of names and dates, but that you'll develop a sense of the past and its connection with the present that will allow you to hold your own in a conversation about, say, the current political or economic or diplomatic news. History doesn't repeat itself, but as Mark Twain may have said, it often rhymes. And one of the main things that we can learn from history, if we do it right, is that there were nearly always a variety of really legitimate ways to understand what was going on while it was happening. And this is also why, to as great an extent as I can manage it, we're going to try to engage with primary sources. You may be aware that a primary source is something that was produced by someone who lived through and maybe even participated in the events of the past. Often, if we choose the right ones, these primary perspectives come from people with differing points of view. In all cases, though, and this is the key, primary sources were produced by people who did not know how things were going to turn out. They were produced while things were happening, not looking back at them retrospectively. And I think this makes them uniquely valuable. It's easy for a historian to look back at the past and think, well, it's obvious that A led to B, led to C. It was inevitable. But often this interpretation doesn't express real inevitability, but just hides the assumptions or even the biases of the historian. All historians have biases, including myself. And historical knowledge also changes, and it should change as new evidence becomes available. So hopefully, throughout this semester, we'll be able to pop some of those bubbles of outdated knowledge and also of biased interpretation and make history both more interesting and more relevant to our own lives today. One final word on technology. Things are moving very rapidly today in some parts of the tech world, although we still don't have the flying cars that were promised to us back in the 50s. But this isn't the first time that this has happened in history. Some other examples are the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, electricity. Imagine living without electricity, and mass communications. But it is true that social media and now artificial intelligence have and will continue to cause a lot of change. Some people are worried about all the jobs disappearing. Other people are trying to use AI to do their work for them. Now, personally, I'm interested in teaching students, not chatbots. Before I became a historian, I actually had a 2-decade career in high tech. So I'm very familiar with disruption and also with how to use these tools like ChatGPT and Grok. I use them myself, and I expect that many students are going to use them. But I also suggest, and really for your own sake, that you use them as tools. Again, large language models aren't really a complete break with the past. Before these AIs, we had Google searches, and we had Wikipedia, and before that, we had websites, and before that, encyclopedias. Before that, we had textbooks and professors. All of these were ways of getting information into a funnel. But it's what you do once it's in there that counts. This engagement with the information that you're going to see in lectures and in the textbook and in sources and also in group discussions is what's important, both for your grade in this class and for your life. If humans are going to be able to maintain an edge over artificial intelligences, it's not going to be in sheer access to facts. We've already lost that battle. It's going to be in finding or creating meaning from those facts. That's the human thing. That's the main thing that we'll be practicing together this semester. So, welcome aboard, and I'm looking forward to the journey. So thanks for listening, and I will see you again very soon.